In his presence I take my stand. Thou prepares a table before me, even in the presence of my enemy. Anointed with oil, my head held high. I am who I am, no need to justify. Goodness and mercy follow my way, for I am who God says I am each day.
Hello, everyone. Now, I had nothing to do with putting on I am. That was all God. That was not our generational turnaround podcast song. But I was talking to Ahmard, and my hand just went to it. So, welcome to Generational Turnaround Podcast, where we speak where we seek the truth, and then we bring you the proof. And the proof comes from our guests who are professionals in their fields, or they are giving us their testimony, or just to share. So, without further ado, hold on. Wait a minute. I'm going to introduce you to our special guest, Ahmard Vital. Hold on, okay. Let me bring Ahmard up. Hello, Ahmard.
Thank you, Judy, for having me on.
Yeah, did you hear the song I put on? That was not our theme song. It was I am because I said I am. We were talking. There we go. We still going on, Ahmad.
Well, we are just going to allow the good Lord to navigate through this time, us together, and hopefully there's some beautiful people out there listening who are seeking something. And I pray that God moves through both of us to be able to provide whatever healing and wisdom and insight they need during this time we're together.
Yes, thank you, Ahmad. I start with my prayer, and so hold on. Heavenly Father, we come to you believing that on this day that we are going to say something or do something that someone in the listening audience will say, I needed that. I needed to hear that. Teach us, oh God, to walk in your way, to live a life that reflects your love, wisdom, and righteousness. Let our faith be more than just words. Let it be an example, a light that guides those who come after us. Father, we pray for our children, for our family, and all those that we are called to influence. May they know we intimately, may they know you intimately, trust you completely, and follow you wholeheartedly. Let them see in us a faith that is real, unwavering, and filled with your grace. Break every generational curse, every cycle of pain, and every stronghold. My God, thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for the plans. Thank you for our dreams. And let in the legacy, let our legacy be of faith. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Now I'm ready. I feel like I've been refreshed, renewed, and I'm ready to see what God is gonna bring through you, Ahmad. But and first and foremost, I want to tell my viewers just a little bit about Ahmard Vital. He is a motivational consultant, international speaker, and author who empowers audience with real tools for personal success. His mental strength and confidence from his best-selling book, Awaken the Baller Within, to coaching athletes into D1 scholarships and NFL careers. Ahmad's message is all about grit, faith, and purpose. He's spoken across the U.S. and globally from Zimbabwe to Abu Dhabi. I know I'm messing that up. You can correct me. Empowering organizations like MD Anderson, Boys and Girls Club, and Prairie View A&M. When he's not on stage, he's mentoring teens, teaching fitness, and helping people believe they are more than enough. Let me introduce again Ahmad Vital. Now, Ahmad, I know I messed that up. Is that Zimbabwe?
Zambia. It's in the southern part of Africa. I spoke at a conference out there, an entrepreneur conference out there. I think that'd been back in 2017.
Uh-huh.
Great time out there. Got to spend about 6 or 7 days down there, my manager and I, and we really got to see things on a very close level and, work with the kids out there. They had a primary school within the community. We drove all the way through what seemed like the jungle and got all the way back to the school, only to go back there and see that they had kindergarten through 5th grade out there, and they had one running pipe of water the entire school. And some of the kids had to walk so far that they stayed the night at the school. The walk was just too far.
Mm.
And we got to see a lot of things in real time, and it really lets you understand and appreciate how privileged we are as Americans. We can complain about a many of things. We can say things that aren't working because nothing is perfect. But travel outside the country, go east, and see how life is. And you will come back here and say, you know what? This clean water we had that comes out of our pipes, pretty good. Pretty good. So it was good times being out there. And we've spoken internationally on a couple of different occasions. And we loved it. But at the same time, we definitely love doing a lot of work here, not only within our own communities, but within our state and our country, to be able to bring empowerment to all the youth who we interact with on a weekly basis.
Well, I want to know, awaken the baller within. Is this something that you teach with that saying to motivate, or do you have another reason for using that as a title?
So Awaken the Baller Within was written back in 2011. It was my first published book. And at the time, I was going through a lot of tumult in my life. Actually, things were going pretty good for me. However, there was a moment whereas I should have been very excited. I should have been very blessed at the fact that, I bought a house at 29, had a pretty good car. I had what will be called the American dream, but I had a relationship that went south very quickly. And to be honest, it probably was the first relationship I had ever encountered where I actually kind of leaned in on it and was like, let me try to do this right. And then it ended up falling apart, and I kind of went through a bit of a depressive state. And I just remember sitting in my house wondering, like, what am I going to do and how am I going to work through this? Because it was really something that I had invested in. And I just remember one night, I had that conversation with God, for those people out there, that dark night when, it's just you, God, and your thoughts. And the beautiful thing is that when things are going wrong in your life, you can't lie to yourself because it's just you. When you break down and cry and it's only you and four walls and your thoughts and your feelings all crashing together. I remember telling God, I said, I don't really think that I'm doing this thing called life well right now. And so with that said, if you wake me up tomorrow, I'll try to do things your way because my way's not working so well. And of course, we're still here. And I just remember at the time, I was a sports writer with Fox Sports doing college football recruiting analyst work. So I'm covering, the top athletes going to play college football and covering the process by which they go to play on the college level. But at the same time, me coming out of this depressive state, I had to hire a mentor. I hired a spiritual advisor. I hired just people around me who can pour into me and help me through this from not only a personal development standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint. So, I'm reading the Bible more. I'm reading, Who Moves My Cheese. I'm moving As a Man Thinketh, all of the great inspirational personal development books that were coming out that had been out for some time. And I wondered, while I'm going through this new personal and spiritual development, how can I use this and also represent sports? I love sports. I love athletes. I love the idea of competition. And so Awaken the Baller Within ended up being that project that bridged the two things together, personal and spiritual development along with football. And I brought it together to almost in the same way Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, where he interviewed millionaires, he interviewed entrepreneurs on how they think and how they were able to create so many things. And so I did the same thing with athletes, interviewing them on, what is the mindset it takes to be successful, to throw so many touchdowns, to run for so many yards, to make so many tackles, to be able to lead a group of guys onto the football field. And so Awaken the Baller Within is a mental book on how to be successful on the field. And what its intent is to think in a way that's going to be productive and give you the results on the field that you're looking for. What I didn't realize at the time that I realized after I had already went through and sold a few copies is that parents were buying them as gifts for their children to read. The issue is that the books would come in while the kids were still in school. So the parents would open the book and say, "What did I buy?" And they're looking at the book and saying, "Hold on, this book is not really about football." No, it's not. It's personal development. But it's using football as a metaphor for life. And so, like, dads and moms were calling me back saying, "This book is also for me. So I'm going to make sure my kid reads it because I've already read over it." And the beautiful thing about it is that I wrote the book in a way to where there's no chapter over 12 pages long, because I didn't like to read when I was playing football in high school and college. So I'm going to write a book that's going to, be for a guy like myself who maybe doesn't like to read. And so Awaken the Baller Within was sort of the foundation for me getting into the sports world. And it also was the start of me becoming a keynote speaker. And so all of those things came together. It is a foundational pillar in my life. And it's interesting because that book comes up a lot. And I'm thinking about writing a part 2 of it at this time as I'm thinking about it to, reflect kind of where I am now. And so it has been a very impactful book. It sold quite a few copies. And so let's see what we can do with it with part 2.
I'm glad you thought about doing that on my show. Yes. But I've got questions, that I want to ask you, Ahmard. And this show, Generational Turnaround, is all about bridging the gap between parents and young people and their children. And so we're trying to find a way, and I went over to TikTok and started talking over there. So my question to you, in your experience working with a diverse range of individuals, what are some common barriers that you've observed between different generations? And I know you've spoken to all. So what is the difference, and how can we effectively bridge those gaps to encourage understanding and collaboration? Because collaboration right now is vital.
Agree. And I think that one of the things that we have to understand is first and foremost is communication. Um, I mean, I'm I'm a Gen X kid. I was born in the late 70s. And the way we communicated and the way students are communicating now is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Cell phones were not cell phones were not something that were very prominent during our time, right? We didn't have a lot of that going on with that. And so when we talk about the idea of being able to connect with them in a certain way, we must look at really the key factors that are at play. And the main thing is that these miniature computers that we have in our pockets now are in some ways just a bridge that we haven't been able to figure out how to cross. And what that's done is that everything, the information that is collected, it's one of those things that it's tough to bridge because it eliminates the idea of how much work we had to put in to be able to share and be able to gather information. So you look at how when we came up, how, even to do a research paper, right? What that entailed. What did we have to do? We had to go to libraries. We had to go to read different types of books and be able to put all of these things together. Mm-hmm. Well, now they just scream into their phone and say, "Tell me about World War II." And so the fact that when we were putting things together, we couldn't cram a term paper. We had to go sit in a library. We had to pull out 7 books. We needed 5 to 7 different sources, and we had to read through those. So what that does is it's almost like there's a microwave generation that's going on right now, because we had to put stuff on the barbecue pit and it had to be on there for 7 hours. We had to put stuff in the oven that may take an hour and a half. Well, the microwave is done in 30 seconds. So take that from a mindset standpoint, that when these kids are looking to find out information on stuff, it happens quickly. So what that happens is that the trials of working towards something, then it taking time to get towards something, that is tough to emulate, because everything that they can acquire can happen quickly. So when they don't get results within a week, whereas we knew it would take us 8 months, it's hard to convey that because their lives, everything is so quickly with the internet and with social media and with cell phones. And so that communication gap is going to be one of the biggest things that's going to be, I don't want to say a hindrance, but what we have to do is try to find a way to deprogram some of the dependency on technology. Meaning, hey, why don't we get out, put the phones away, and go touch some grass and actually talk to people in person, and not through via text or FaceTime or through Zoom or through a platform like this.
And what happens when you ask that question? Because when I asked that question over there at TikTok, look, this is our time. That was your time. This is not going to happen. This is the way it's going to be, and it's going to get even easier because we are going to we get in touch with each other in a drop of a hat. We are going to let y'all know when something big is happening because we're on our phones, and we're going to be knowledgeable of it. What do you say to that?
Well, you let life say something to that. because a lot of times they'll want to try things their way. You'll say, hey, here's a way to be able to do something. They'll say, like you said, oh, you older people, you all don't understand. Okay. But when time after time and they're looking for results and those results aren't happening because it does take a while for that Thanksgiving turkey to cook, right? It's not a quick fix. And so once life actually happens to them, they're more receptive to show up and say, Miss Judy, I know before I wasn't trying to hear this, but do you have any strategies on how to accomplish fill in blank here? Life will teach you, because that part of life is undefeated. The idea of it'll take time to develop a level of success, that's undefeated. It's just this mirage that everything can happen. And people always look at these, a lot of podcasters and some of these entertainers, and they get a lot of quick, fast money. What they don't understand is as fast as money can come in, money can go out. I mean, yes. a lot of the people we grew up who were movie stars and athletes and different things like that, a lot of them are flat broke because they didn't take on they got the money so fast, and the principles to be able to maintain the money, the fact that you need to have people around you who can help you manage that money. When you say, I figured this all out because I know too much, well, again, life will teach you that not only do you not know anything, but you need to have people around you who can help usher you through this thing called life, because life does not come with instruction manuals. And even when you talk about, your parents didn't know anything either. They had to figure things out along the way. And so what are we talking about here?
Ahmard, I want you to continue to talk while I take care of something. So you just keep it going. Okay.
All right. Well, the bottom line is that we must be able to connect with our people and get them what is needed. The communication gap is going I think it's going to fix itself. I think a lot of these natural disasters that have come up here recently, I think those are going to help out some. I mean, yeah, they're tragic and different things like that. We've gone through a couple of pretty rough storms down here in the Houston area. And, when there's a blackout, guess what? There's not a lot of telecommunication. Most people's phones didn't even work during that time. And so the idea of having a family unit together, the idea of having a community together, the idea of having strong churches, all of those things were extremely important. And so we need to understand and know that these barriers that you speak of, they're going to continue, but at the same time, they're also going to continue to get better, because we can't continue moving at the pace we are now when it comes to family commitments and us coming together as a unit to be able to collaborate and do a lot of things that need to be done. So I think the generational gap will start to soften up here in many different ways to get us to a place where we can navigate through what our students are going through, because a lot of these young people, they unfortunately find their identities through social media and think that those friends of theirs are actually their friends, when in actuality they're they may be a real person on the other side, but if you never actually meet them in person, there's a lot of things that can come into play that are not going to be beneficial for them from a longevity standpoint. And so we have to continue to be understanding and see as best we can what they're going through, because when you don't have the work ethic to go along with what they are attempting and trying to do, there's a lot of stress that comes with that. There's a reason why the what they call I guess you call the mental health crisis, and the coddling of them, and being overly concerned about their feelings from the standpoint of not teaching them to be able to endure through different struggles. I know that my father taught me very early on about losses in life. I started running track at the age of 10, And there's a beautiful thing about sports like track, tennis, wrestling, swimming. All of those are team sports. I think I mentioned tennis as well. All of those are team sports, but they all have an individualized situation that comes with them as well. And so when you have the opportunity to go out and compete, and it's you versus other people, and there's not a team to be able to bail you out of some of those situations, it's a beautiful thing to be able to know that you can look yourself in the in the mirror and know that the reason why you won or lost is because of you.
Thank you so much. I pulled the plug out of the wall, and everything I'm handicapped, and so when I do something, I don't have anybody here to help me. So you were wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We're here to serve and to assist one another. So by all means, we can continue with the regularly scheduled program already in progress. And
Thank
so
you.
let's
Thank you.
continue on.
All right. Well, faith and motivation is my next topic. And you know, I know because we was talking about faith, and you are as a speaker always motivate people. So I have a segment that's called Healing Words, and God gave me that. And based on the healing words, I this book behind me is what I wrote, Healing Words, Speaking Life into the Generations. And you were talking about parents uh, reading your book and realizing that it has something in there for them and their children. So you're bridging the gap with your book, and I don't know, you didn't even know it. Is that right?
It came on to me pretty quickly because once we started moving the book, people were starting to reach out and really share their thoughts with the book. But at the same time, it's you wrote your book Healing Words, and maybe you had a particular intent for it, and you don't know what impact it's having that maybe was not part of your original game plan.
Oh,
But that's
yes.
what's so beautiful about being open to the interpretation of what people read into your words, because you're writing it for a particular person, but if it touches a person in a different type of way, that's a win. Because obviously we can hear a sermon and somebody and everybody can walk away and take something different away from what the pastor said. It's the same message, but where we are in different times of our lives, our faith is at a different level, our motivation is at a different level, our discernment is at a different level, our wisdom is at a different level. And so all of those things come together. And when these words are read, chapter 2 might be the chapter you're like, hey, this is the chapter that everyone needs. And everybody might be like, no, chapter 3 actually spoke to me. And so we have to be open to that, because God is speaking to all of us, but he's not necessarily saying the same thing to all of us, because he's meeting us where we are. Right?
Right.
We're at a different place in life, all of us. But that same message may bear fruit in a different type of way. When the word becomes flesh, we don't know what part of the flesh is needing with these words that are coming from the words that you share or what I share. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody can watch this whole segment and they may have gotten caught up in the story from before. They may catch something 20 minutes from now. It's not for us to decide. It's for the receiver to catch that.
And because we don't know who we're gonna heal someone, but they may be healing in another place in their body, their mind, their mental space. We don't know, but we know that we are led to say what we say. And so I'm I want to know, with your coaching and with your motivational speaking, have you had someone that said, like the church, that's for me. That was for me. I didn't come here, I didn't know it, but when you started speaking, I knew that that was for me.
Judy, it's interesting you say that because, typically you put together a keynote, you have a main centralized theme, and, you'll have your points to talk on reinforcing the theme.
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how many times I've taken the stage and had the points laid out, and all the points, I mean, I've rehearsed them. They're ready. These are exactly what everyone needs to hear. And then you'll get done and somebody will be like, oh, I love what you said in that story about this. And I'm thinking, that story wasn't even in the notes. It just flowed in real time when I was talking about a particular point. And I said, yeah, I remember when me and my friends got together and did this, and this was the result of that. And the thing that wasn't the thing ended up being the thing they needed. And I'm before I used to get a little frustrated by that, and I'm like, wait a minute, how is this? I thought all the points I put down were exactly what needed to be said, but then I realized that when we let the Holy Spirit go before us
Yes.
and bring the nurturing to the fertile ground for which we speak, and to where we present that which we are wanting to share with the people, it's His will, not yours. Now,
Right.
the points you shared, they weren't bad points, but He
Mhm.
knows exactly all the recipients, all the hearts, all the ears, all the minds. He knows exactly what they need, and He's putting into you in a short period of time exactly what is needed for a particular person at a particular time in their lives. This is completely outside of our own understanding. And early on, it used to confuse me, but the more you get into the word, the more you understand and be like, all right, Holy Spirit, this is your time. I've done all the preparation I can do. Now you take it from here, and you allow, the word to become flesh. And whatever that looks like, however that manifests in this moment, for what your sheep need, right? And I'm nothing more but a vessel, and I want to be in your presence and deliver what you want me to have your people to receive.
And I've had people say, I wasn't even coming to this. I'm not supposed to be here. I was kicking and screaming, and my wife brought me here, and I met you. What about that, Mom?
I mean, there's so many to throw out there where
Yeah.
someone comes to you and they grab your hand and say, you are exactly what I needed. And when you left the house or left the hotel room, you just never know. I know the last time we were in Austin, we were speaking at a conference, and it was a large conference. Part of it was a governmental agency. We were speaking over the idea that they were doing some paperless deal, like they were going like full technology, and so they wanted to bring a sports element into it, and I'm like, okay, cool. And they were showing me some things logistically that needed to happen, and my team was down there. I'm getting my video guy put together. I got my manager over here, and I'm over there typing in some notes and this and that, and something just was over me to where I look down and I'm like, I'm taking the stage in 7 minutes, and my team and I haven't prayed yet. And I was like, oh Lord, please, please, please. I mean, obviously I'd already individually prayed, but I usually have that prayer with my team. We get focused on what needs to happen, but we started all taking care of assignments that we got too busy in the moment. And I remember the man came up to the stage and he's announcing me from the paper. We got a guy in town. He's bringing the message. And mind you, I'm walking from the back. This is a huge area we're in. And I was on my way up to the stage. And I don't know how this happened. It was only God. My manager intercepted me in the middle of the aisle, pulled me aside, pulled me close and said, Father, I thank you for my brother. And like he prayed for me on the spot while they're announcing my name. And somebody caught the photo of that. And I can tell you right now, there was a holy moment that happened at that time. And I just remember getting on stage and I had this just carefree attitude of just like, hey, we're here. We're in the presence. Let's talk about a few things. And so we're joking. I'm bringing up stuff about my childhood. And it just turned into a beautiful, fun, but informative night. And then as we're having this holy conversation, and it's, you know, we're giving strategies and this and that. And then I went completely off the notes. And I was just like, you know what? Here's an idea. When you go home, hug one of your family members. Now, what does that have to do with what you got going on at your job? As far as logistically working through dealing with fax machines and PDF documents. What does going home and hugging one of your loved ones have to do with anything? And I'll tell you what it has to do with. It has to do with the fact that the foundation of what we're doing here on earth is people, family, love, faith, acceptance. That's what it's about. All this other stuff that we're doing does not matter if the foundation of the home is not taken care of. Because what are you doing it for? Why are we on this podcast? Why do we go to work? Why do we earn an income? Why do we take care of utilities? Why do we do all of these things? Because there's people who are entrusted to us. There's people we love who are in our lives. So the love obviously comes from God and is embedded into us. And our job is to let the light shine. We're called to be salt and light in the world. So that is the foundational pillar of everything. And so I just remember that moment, and it really brought me sort of in a full circle moment saying, okay, God, I'm listening. This is you. This is not about me at all. I am your messenger. Here I am, send me. And so all of those things, I'm really working on this, Ms. Judy. I promise you, I'm really working on this idea of letting go a little bit more, if that makes sense, right? Because I like to prep. I'm a ball player. I like to be in the gym. I want to be physically and mentally strong going into things. But then there's a strength that has nothing to do with neither one of those. That you come from being on your knees in the most powerful position you can be in, which is the position of a submission. And that's the part that we have to really embrace in this time in our lives. And unfortunately, it only took me 40 plus years to figure that out in fullness. But, you know, it takes a little while for some of us. And, you know, maybe late to the party, but you know what? I showed up.
You showed up. And you know, I who have one leg does not bend, but I still get on that other knee because, and I had people say, well, you don't have to do that. Yes, I do. And so turning challenges into opportunity. Your book, Now What? 5 steps to get up and create the most of life. You discuss overcoming major life transitions. Can you share a story where you or someone you coach successfully turned a significant challenge into an opportunity for growth?
Whew. You hit me with something that really touches my soul at a very deep level. And I remember looking over that question and I was just like, Lord, there's so many opportunities and so many blessings you've placed before me. But the one that would probably relate more to many people who are transitioning from one thing to the next. I was in college a little longer than I should have been. I was in college for 6.5 years. My family, that's a joke in our family home. I laugh about it because, you know, it was like, at least I came away with something. But I remember I put myself through college working in sports bars and nightclubs, and I did some substitute teaching. Like I was just a hustler. I sold, you know, mixtapes. I mean, I was just entrepreneurial, just out there, just doing it all, but living it up. Not really living much of a godly life, but I was hustling. That's what I knew to do. And whereas I never really abandoned the gospel, I definitely wasn't living it. And so I was making an insane amount of money as a college student, like a bunch. And so, I mean, I came out of college with, you know, almost a five-figure account coming into the city of Houston. And so I come out of college with a journalism degree, because I've been a writer since the age of 14. And I just remember looking around for different jobs and wasn't really much biting at that time. And I remember eventually a job showed up, and it was at a community newspaper. And I was like, you know what? Let me think about this. And I remember, mind you, I just came off of a nightclub job where I'm making basically $100 to $150 to $200 a night, 4 to 5 nights a week. So do the math on that. That's pretty good money for a college student. Only to get a degree and have a company tell me they're going to pay me $10 an hour. No, I'm not doing that. That's not how this works. And I remember calling my father at the time, and I said, Dad, let me tell you what happened. This newspaper, now it was the largest community newspaper in the state of Texas. So it did have some prowess, but it's 10 an hour. I haven't worked for 10 an hour since I was 17 years old. We're not doing this. And my father said, oh, yes, you are. You're going to take that job, and you're going to stay at that job for 1 year. I said, Dad, don't do this. Like, I can't do it. I cannot do this. I cannot stay at this job. I cannot take this job. And he said, you're going to take that job, and you're going to stay there for 1 year to show other employers that you have stability and you can stay somewhere and be committed to something for at least 1 year. And he said, also, if you can learn to live at $10 an hour, you will never be broke again. And I was like,
smart man.
I know, but I wanted to fight him because I was like, I'm not trying to hear that. Right. Because I'm trying to stack the cash. And it was funny because so I'm making 10 an hour. And I think at the time it came out to like $17,700. And so my father was living overseas at the time. And he's like, well, you can help out with some stuff around your grandmother's house, and I'll pay you $500 a month. So I go from $17,700 to $23,700. So yeah, I'm just rolling in the cash now, right? And so it's funny. I took that job. I stayed there for a year. I broke a lot of major stories, and I was working within a community called Spring Branch out this way, only for a family to really be very connected to some of the stories I was writing. And they loved the way I presented the information. I was very fair. I never got caught up in any scandals. If somebody said something was off the record, I honored that. And I respected all of the coaches and the players around me. Well, there was an entrepreneur who had about 4 or 5 different businesses who wanted to get into the college recruiting and sports media business. And so they presented me with an offer to start a startup company to be able to do sports media, help young men and women get to college by way of college scholarships via sports. And I would be in charge of the journalism division. We would work through things, and I would be the liaison to college coaches and working through all these different things. And I remember coming in, and I sat across from the guy, and he said, you can come on with us, and we'll pay you $36,000. Now, I'm 27, 28 at the time. I never got paid over $28,000 before. So when outside of college. And so I'm grateful that my father gave me, the biblical wisdom to be able to say, stay the course, honor those who are offering you something, put your best foot forward, and do the best job you can, provide more service, more value than what you're being paid, and you'll be blessed on the other side. And not to mention, I stayed at that job for what, 4 or 5 years, only for that to lead me into an actual college recruiting analyst job that ended up doubling my money over the next 2 to 3 years. So if we're bringing,
what you just said, do you know how many young people need to hear that? And I want you to go on.
the bottom line is that you always provide more in value than what your paycheck shows. Like, get every dime you can out of it. And I'm not saying to not go get your money. What I'm saying is that you work for the position you want, not the position you have.
Right.
Right. Meaning, if you're paid $40,000, how about you generate $80,000 to $100,000 worth of value so that you get that next income raise? And then when you get to that point and you get to the 80,000, now you produce $120,000, $130,000 worth of value. Right. And then when you get to that point, you see where this is going. Meaning, we always give more because I believe it says that we come to serve, not to be served. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I think that's where we're coming with that. But see, we live in this what's in it for me type of mentality, and that type of mentality does not bear fruit, right? Because we're called to give unto those. We're supposed to take care of the least of these. We're supposed to be able to honor those who are over us, who are in authority. Meaning that if you are the assistant manager, your job is to make sure that the manager shines in his position by doing everything to make sure that he does well. And if he's the type of man who operates like you, when you do something well, he's going to put in a word for you and say, you know what? Tim doesn't belong in this position. He needs to be elevated because he's doing the level of work that I am supposed to be doing, and he's doing it in an honorable way, and it's time to give him that proper promotion. But guess when you won't get a promotion? When people say, oh, I'm doing my job. Your job is not enough. How can you get promoted for doing what you're listed to do?
More than enough.
If you're doing what the contract says to do and nothing more, where's the increase? How can you get increase when you're doing exactly what the paper says? You're not going above and beyond. You're not bringing others in to be able to clear a pathway to make others great. Because what I share with my young men, it's so ironic you ask this question right now, because I just got through speaking to a young man last night or night before last at prayer meeting. I said, look, I meant to tell you that last week when our conference was in town, that the leadership you exhibited in leading other young men was awesome. It was amazing. And I said, I want to see more of that because I know that you took charge of the situation. I told you all to take care of this, and you of leading the other group of guys, even though I gave all of you the same directives, you took lead in making sure that they were supporting and getting everything done. And I want to let you know that I recognize that and I honor what you were doing in that spot. And I said, if you don't mind, I usually don't say that because I just come kind of off the top rope. If you don't mind, I'd like to lean in more on making sure that you continue to develop as that leader. And he's like, I do want you to do that. And I was like, now understand, lean in a little bit. Understand that brings a lot more pressure. That brings a lot more accountability. And that brings a lot more of heaviness on you because you have to take on the burdens. Because see, what I want you to understand is that when everything goes well, you distribute the praise to all those you work with. I said, but when things go awry, you say, you know what? I'll do better this time. That's on me. And so when we look at things from that standpoint and holding ourselves accountable, that's when more things can happen because everyone is operating at a level to be able to serve those who are just above them and to be able to honor those who are below them. And all of this altruism is just coming around, all of this servanthood, all of this washing of one another in a way that's going to bring everybody to a place where we're going to see great increase, great gains, and make sure that everyone is taken care of at a very high level. That is what I want from our young people. And I do believe, whereas I know that young people get a bad rap these days, right? They don't do this.
Yeah.
They're too lazy. They don't do this and
Yes.
that. But what we have to understand is that when we really look at what all is going on in society right now,
Hmm.
generation of those who are in high school and in college right now, they're
Yeah.
part of the revolution. They're part of the revival. They're going to restore all the nonsense that happened from the generation before the boomers and Gen X, right? They're going
Hmm.
to come in. They're going to come in because see, the enemy thinks that he already got a hold of that generation, but what he doesn't understand is that those of us from the silent and the boomer and the Gen X generation, see, we were paying attention, right?
Right.
We got to sift through what didn't work, and so now what he doesn't understand is that because now we're wiser, we're not over the hill, we're not too old, but guess what we do have? We have the understanding of what was, and we have the understanding of what's to come. Meaning our job, because the enemy only wants us to try to destroy us, to not give them the truth. And so our job is to be empowered. And every time we run into and we encounter these young people, is that we pour out everything we have into them. Every time we're with them, we're giving them the game. We're sharing with them through Bible studies. We're discipling them. We're giving them the opportunity to be prayer partners. We are giving them the tools they need to go into those hallways, to go into those sports arenas, to go into those libraries and find those prodigals. Because see, we can get into the schools, but we're not in the hallways. We're not in the gym. We're not in the locker rooms. See, they are there. So our job is to give them all that they need to go in and go and make disciples and share the good news. So that is where our role comes in, because the revival is going to come from them. That is an anointed generation we have behind us. And I've recognized that in my time in working with youth ministry down here in the Woodlands, Texas. This generation, there may be some crazies out there. There may be some who, are caught up
Everywhere.
in the feminism and
In
all sorts
every
of other things.
generation.
But you know what? There's some on fire young people. We got young people down this way who are leading Bible studies.
Hmm.
They're meeting in hallways. They're having fellowship in Chick-fil-A. Right? They're out there doing the work. See you at the pole, they're 80 deep. Right?
Let me ask you something. Okay.
Okay.
So now for me, and I've talked to some young, when I read the Bible, man, when you read the Bible about David and Daniel and that's in real time is these young people right now. They are the Davids and the Moses and all of that. And if you just take the time and even share it with them and tell them about some of the characters who were in the Bible that was young like them, they're going to be able to see themselves. And when we talk about the role of the community, how important, you just said it, for the community to get in sync with these young people right now. Come to where they are, meet them where they are. I just had to throw that in there. What do you think?
I believe community is not only what's needed, but it's a requirement. And it comes twofold. And I don't want to labor on this point too much, but it's worth saying. The community, the true community, starts at home.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the biggest struggle that we have right now in society. Is the fact that homes have been totally demolished at every level. I mean, whether it's welfare, the feminism, no fault divorce, single motherhood, the feminization of boys, divorce, and all of these different things that the enemy has used to just destroy the family, right? there's just certain things that are just good. There's some strongholds on the family that are going to have to be restored. And as optimistic as I am, it is going to take probably 20 or 30 years to get the restoration of that going. Because the reason why we're dealing with all of this is because the families were completely broken, somewhere between the 50s and the 70s. The Great Society, and then you got the feminist movement again. And we've made it so easy for families to break apart through divorce, right? Mm-hmm. And this is uncomfortable to say, but it's the truth. We have to stop glorifying single motherhood, right?
Yes.
We need to stop that. I'm not saying that it's not going to still happen. What I'm saying is that's not a celebratory thing. Mm-hmm. And we need to get away from that, because what's ended up happening is it's created this weird gender divide between males and females, and the lines are blurred. I mean, half the time you ask half the people, we don't even know what a woman is today, right? Yeah. And so there's this whole thing. And so I think what's going to have to happen is families will have to be restored, but what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make sure that the American church is strong.
Yes.
We got to bring back the old school, those deacons, right? Those old school pastors, you know what I'm saying? The elder women who used to come in with the hats. Can we bring that back for a little while? Right? Can we bring back some wooden pews if need be? And what I mean is, I'm not saying that those need to come back, but that old school spiritual attitude that we had back then, to where there was healthy discipline going on back then. You just couldn't just run around and say what you wanted to say. You couldn't just be reckless and just go. We're called to honor. We need to bring all of those back. And I think that if we get the church, because the family is going to take some time, because we got to get the mindset of women don't need men and men are just using women. We got to get that attitude up out of here. And that's going to take a while, right, to get rid of that. And we got to restore the idea that there's a small quadre of men populating the earth with a large subset of women who are having babies by the same, group of men. Like, we need to just break that stronghold of you all are worth well more than this. God loves you way too much for you to just be giving your body and your soul away in this type of way. This is not what we're supposed to be doing.
You're right, Ahmard, but I'm gonna have to cut you off to give you 2 minutes to say what you'd like to leave my viewers with before we get off.
Oh man. Well, first of all, I'm grateful to be able to share with you all, and I think that if I could share anything, is that to close out with, we need to restore community, restore families. For those of you who haven't found a church home, please start looking around for something like that. To my young men out there, you are leaders. Stand up and not only become one, but act like you are. Ladies, you are valuable, you are loving, you are nurturers, and I want us to restore that part of our lives. Parents, continue doing exactly what is needed. It's not meant to be perfect, but just know that when you lead with your heart and lead with discipline, I think that good things can come from that. I don't want to complicate things here. I wasn't one of those known as an intellectual. I was just one who learned a lot of things along the way. And many things haven't worked and a few things have. But what I do know, one thing, is that we all serve an almighty and loving God who has never left nor forsaken us and has always been right there when we've needed him most. So tap into that. Get into a good Bible-based church. Go get you a Bible if you don't have one. Begin reading it immediately, and just connect with community and connect with like-minded people. Pray every day. Turn everything over to him. Repent. And let's just do this all over again and see where we can end up when we start over and turn all our cares and concerns over to the Lord Almighty.
Yes, right there. That's it. right there, everything you say. I'm going to say, I pray that today has been better than yesterday, but not as good as tomorrow. I pray that tomorrow will bring forth a double portion of blessings in the form of opportunity that you never seen coming. So thank you so much, Ahmard. We got to do this again. We
Well,
got so many things happened in between this, but not to worry. It didn't stop anything. We got the word out because God. So I want you to come back again. Please tell me you'll come back again.
I will come back again. You let me know, and we will follow up on these topics, bring in new topics when we get the feedback from your audience.
Yes.
If they come with something, and we'll be like, okay, there's our new topic,
Okay.
because we want to meet the needs of where our people are,
That's
right? If
right.
it has to do with parental things, if it has to do with some confusion within the word, if it needs to come within prayer life, if it needs to whatever we need to do,
Okay.
we'll ask the good Lord to bless us with the wisdom and the discernment to be able to follow His lead and giving our flock exactly what they need in the moment.
That's it. That's a wrap. Okay, you hold on. Don't go anywhere. Everybody, thank you again. And I will see you Sunday at 7 o'clock for Disability Unplugged. Hold on. Wait a minute.